I am especially grateful to be doing this talk with a lovely collector from Istanbul, Sevda Elgiz. Sevda, I thought it might be nice for you to tell a little bit about the Elgiz collection before we get started, and I'll tell a little about me also in your own words, yeah?
Yeah. Hello. We started to buy art nearly 30 years ago, and slightly our collection grow, and finally we had more space and to share with the public, because we think that the responsibility of a collector is to make public, to make visible the art that they buy. So my husband is in construction business, and one of his constructions, the ground floor of nearly 2,000 square meters, we dedicated to our collection. Is a private museum open to the public, non-profit.
That's amazing. 30 years of collecting contemporary art in Turkey. Okay, so we'll get more into that a little bit later. My name is Mari Spirito, and I have a nonprofit art organization called Protocinema. We make itinerant art exhibitions in different places in the world, and I'm based in Istanbul, so that's how our relationship is put together. One of the first things I thought might be nice to comment on is when everybody goes to an art fair, we have our own experience of it. There's the structure of the fair and all the things that happen around it, but we all do it in our own way, like we do everything else. And so for me, I see lots of people rushing and running around the fair. They're having short conversations and trying to see everything. But I found over the years of going to art fairs that for me, if I go slowly and methodically and really look deeply and think deeply, for me, I get more out of it. I might not see as much, but the things I see deeply, you know?
Well, of course. The collector, since we don't have any particular intention of archiving, of documentation, or follow the history of art, is different.
Right.
We look to the art, we try to construct an emotional relationship. So we stop where there is something that attracts us. So this is the same. Plenty of nice work, but few of them they really would. I would like to live together.
I remember when I first came to Istanbul, there was this space called 4L. And I was really amazed. You had a Doug Aiken photograph, and since I was working at 303 for so long, and I love Doug Aiken's work very close, how did you come to Doug's work?
When we wanted to open our collection to the public, we realized that in our country, the audience was not ready to understand what was happening. So we said, why we don't set up an experimental museum where the young collector, the young artists can show their work. And at that time, the Istanbul Biennale was having great success, and we tried to put together young Turkish artists with the established artists. The Doug Aiken was one of our first acquisitions. A photography, very nice.
It was one of your first acquisitions?
Yes.
I didn't know that. So great.
Not exactly the first one, but
in the beginning.
At the beginning,
Fantastic.
Yeah. And at that time, the photography was still not considered an artwork, because today the contemporary art is not only painting, sculpture, video, installation. Now it's photography, and plus the food also became a part of the contemporary art. When we bought that photography in Turkey, our friends also wanted to know why you spend so much money for a photography. Well, this is something that happens when you make a collection. And this guy told me, if I were you, if I were a contemporary art collector, I would buy not only one of this edition. If it is 6th edition, I would buy all 6 editions, so I can say that work belongs to me. So
that's fascinating. The mindset. It's a kind of interesting mindset.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I want to ask him how many Cindy Sherman's editions he bought. or other photographies. I mean, slightly we have been educated what is the collections, how we do the collections. And in Turkey also we have a new generation who is interested really in contemporary art, and they make their international collections. The collection cannot be only local, because we live in a globalization of art. So if we want to push our local artists, we should place them in international collections. And this is what we want to do in our museum.
But the interesting thing about this comment about the photograph for contemporary art is there's a long history of photography in Turkey. I mean, look at Ara and the new Ara Museum.
Yeah, but Ara is now considered a photographer, an artist. He also said that he's not an artist, he's just the one who makes photographies. But today the photograph is very, very important, and Ara Güler gained the importance that he deserves.
This is fantastic. This is great. I think we're almost there. No, we're here.
This is Yeşim Turanli. I'm the director and founder of Fireworks Gallery. 21st year in Istanbul and 6th year in London. And
You have two names.
I have two names. Yeah, English name Jade, Turkish name Yeşim. All mean the same precious stone. Thank you, Mari.
So this is a gallery that you're really familiar with.
Yes, she is one of the first few contemporary art galleries in Istanbul. So when we started to buy contemporary artworks, she was the one who made the exhibitions of him. And the artist Kemal Seyhan.
For me, also first time in Turin. It was really it's such a nice experience to be here and to be to be able to join the exhibition. It's
So this is his work.
And I was wondering, all this work made on a paper, is it? I mean, long life? He says absolutely. He creates much more nice things on paper, and it's really very rare. All this layers, very thin layers, transparent layers, because he works with layers. One on the top of the other. The first works you had, they were thick layers, but I see here they are all linear, very, very thin monochrome paintings, but you can see also some hidden lines, hidden images.
And also it looks like there's a direct relationship to textiles. Is this something you're thinking about?
my aim is not to connect my work with textiles, but it is through a long procedure of work with paint, oil paint. There is always a kind of a solution, comes out a solution, a kind of the material will be alienated, kind of, and then you have always associations with textile, but it is not aimed like this.
So from you, it's mostly about materiality and like how you're denying that it's paint, or how?
I would say it's the process is much more important than the materiality, but it is for me. It's always I wonder always if through repetition is it possible to come to a stage in which the beginning, the first sessions are where I start is diminished, and if it's possible to come to a new stage through doing the same things again and again, again and again, if brings us to a new.
But also, this is a cycle of our immaterial life. That it's temporary, continuing cycle.
This is Fatma Bucak. It's a Turkish artist. She works still nature, and she deals with immigration, with gender, with borders issue. When I knew this artist, I was so impressed by a work of her.
Which one? What was it?
Damascus rose. This Damascus rose in Damascus was a rare rose used for perfume, for sweets. But during the war, it was abandoned, the cultivation, and it was forbidden to take them out. Mm-hmm. So the artist wanted to export it to Europe, like the immigrants do. I mean, but these plants were stopped at the customs. They faced many difficulties. Some of the plants died. Some survived finally with the legal procedure. They came to Italy. Mm-hmm. And she made an exhibition. I don't know where it was.
Mass Foundation.
So she made a garden, mm-hmm. and she grafted the Damascus roses with the Italian rose plants. So in future, if they will have their root in the soil, or they will die. That means that they survive for a better life. The roses will fight, will try to be in life. I was so impressed with this.
We have repeated this project in London, and we had 53 buds, and half of them were grafted with Italian roses, half of them were pure Damascus roses. We had 17 survivors, 6 were then mixed with Italian roses, only 1 survived from Damascus roses.
So the refugees also, they come in a country, foreign country, they make their survive fight, and some they are integrated, some they are not. So that's a nice, very
yeah, it's a beautiful metaphor.
Suzanne Hepfuna is an artist also with different roots, half German, half Egyptian, lives in between Düsseldorf, New York, and Cairo. And they're very much combination of West and Eastern architecture and feeling in her head. It's an abstract image of these, and these are in reference to wooden mashrabiyas we use in Middle East, just so that the houses can breathe. You don't have to use windows and doors, and they make amazing shadows. And this is a play on words, here, now, nowhere, and she just likes these meditative words.
And German architectural shadows kept from Mashrabiya, where the women still are or were kept behind at the homes, behind this wooden windows, and also for having shadow from the strong sun. They use this Mashrabiya in the houses. This fair is all 25 years. And when we started to make our collection, this was one of the fairs where we came to make our acquisitions. The first time we were invited to hold a talk with other collectors, why we collect, what we collect, where we display.
When was that talk, Sevda?
Sorry?
When was that talk?
Maybe the 4th or 5th edition of Artissima, so 20 years ago. Right. And we had this relation. We love this fair. It's a small fair, but very friendly fair. And we love also Sandretto, Patrizia Sandretto Rebaudengo. Yeah. She does so much for art in Turin, in Italy also. So we love to support her work. We come often. We invite our friends to be here, and we love this fair.
And so you found Patrizia like as a inspiring comrade in the journey.
Yes. She is a model, a big responsibility of being collector.
I think we all need different kinds of support and inspiration. So are there any other places you get your inspiration?
Well, yeah, in Germany, not at the beginning, but now there are plenty of collectors. The Thomas Albrecht collection open to the public, the Falkenberg. In Miami, you have the Rubel collection. Yeah. You have De La Cruz collection, Cisneros collection. At the beginning, there were mostly Miami collectors open to the public, but now in every city you find collectors that make open their collections to the public.
Do you ever open up your home for people to come see the work in your collection in your
At
house?
the beginning, yes. At the beginning, we used to open our house because when we make the acquisitions, we first take at home, so we get familiarized with them enough, and then we share with the public. And yeah, when we have special guests that they want to see our home, we open our home. This is a duty. Now all the collectors open their houses.
Well, I think also it's sensitive. People have, it's a private space also, and we have to do it in the ways that everybody feels comfortable. You know, like this. Here we are, Lauretana Bibi Gallery in Dubai. But let's talk about where did these images come from, and what's the relationship to these more graphic? Because I really like this work.
Yeah, we found very interesting yesterday. But it is photography, specially printed on a special paper.
Actually, they're printed on a textile using garment industry technology, where the ink is actually like a colored plastic dye, which is melted on, so it becomes much more durable than a fine art technique. And then the rest of it is embroidered with patterns which are based on Uzbek textiles, but the arrangement and the abstract composition is actually based on paintings by Vasily Kandinsky. One of the things that Farhad is really interested in is the legacy of Russia and the Soviet Union in Central Asia and in Iran, because they're neighboring countries, neighboring areas. So what you're seeing here is a legacy of Russia and the Soviet Union with the ballet schools in Uzbekistan, and then something of the kind of Central Asian, Turkic, Persian style of embroidery, which is overlaid on top of it. So it's various different layers of culture and different layers of history, which really are just piled one on top of the other.
Yeah, and this isn't something that he's the only person to put this together. There is a history of cross-cultural dialogue here.
Yeah, that's right. There's a history which goes back about 200 years, or even longer, since Russia, the Russian Empire, captured Central Asia, and really all the way up until 1991, when the Soviet Union disbanded and you had all of the Central Asian republics getting independence. But up until that time, you had the Russian-controlled state, first of all the Russian Empire, and then the Soviet Union, actually being the direct neighbor of Iran, the direct northern neighbor. So instead of, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about East-West exchange, but one of the things that Farhad is interested in is this North-South exchange. And it was really a two-way exchange. You had Russians coming down to Iran, you had Iranians coming up to Russia and to the Central Asian republics, and a lot of artistic, cultural exchange for a couple of hundred years.
I find this really inspiring. That
Absolutely.
in this time in history, it's very important to think about all the positive things that comes when cultures intersect. Absolutely.
This is a photography of tissues. How is the collage here?
The medium of this is quite specific. It's a kind of micro mosaic made of brass and wood, which has been colored. It's either been colored black or green or red. That gives it the color, with bone as well. And it's a micro mosaic which is very specific to Iran, called khatam. And it's been used for about the last 600 years. Usually you find it on backgammon boxes and furniture and pen cases. Yeah. But what Farhad has done here is he's used it to recreate compositions which come from Russian suprematists. So in this case, I think all four of these ones are from El-Lazitsky, but I've seen others where he's taken Malevich compositions. So what he's doing is he's appropriating the Persian use of khatam, which is this special way of making marks and this geometric patterns, but then overlaying it onto the Russian avant-garde.
But it also looks like a functional object. Like, is this a box that has a purpose? Like, what is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's left the border around it in exactly the same way that you'd have in a pen case or on a backgammon set, because yes, it does look like it could be a functional object. And and the way that they're presented is in such a way where it's somewhere between a painting and a sculpture and an object. He likes this way, this ambiguity between different functions or different art forms.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a fluidity that's also not in the materials. It supports a fluidity in the cultural ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And also a fluidity in terms of what is a painting, what is a sculpture. One of the things that he's really interested in is the way that the compositions of paintings can be transposed into textiles. And I think you see I've been to many museum shows recently where textile designers and weavers are given the same sort of prominence that historically painters were, because in fact their art form has always been just as valid. And
yeah.
This is interesting.
This is interesting, no? This is great. Something that I find that's one of my favorite parts of going to art fair is that I like to go visit the people I know that live in other cities. I haven't seen in a long time, see what they're doing. But also it's a great place to discover there's something new.
Definitely, definitely. The collectors, when they go to each other's house, they're always inspired. So they go to see the galleries where the collector lives, and they try to see with the collectors of the local collector, with the eyes, and to make new acquisitions. They are inspired by other collectors of the place, of the city.
And I learned about a new artist that I hadn't known before. This is something that's new to me, so I thought it might be fun for us to visit as a group. This is a gallery here in Italy, in Napoli, Umberto Di Marino. So we'll take a look at this together. Come on. Santiago Cuculo. So I was walking around and I saw this piece and I thought it was super interesting, this beautiful gesture figure of someone walking in the rain. And then it's not falling rain, which we've been experiencing so much of this past few days. These beautiful ceramics. So I asked about the gallery about this, and this artist is from Buenos Aires, but he lives in the United States now, and when he gets homesick from time to time, goes back to Buenos Aires and takes photos of street art, and then incorporates this into his work. Hello, dear.
This is a part of the most recent project that the artist did in our gallery, and the whole piece is a sort of an abstraction of different murales that he saw during his childhood in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and he decided to make this sort of new murales in a way to create a different story that is a personal story, but it's a sort of archive of the story of the Buenos Aires streets. And he also, after decided to make personally this type of ceramic that you can see are not perfect because are made by the artist, and also you can see the different elements that came from the maybe classic mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, but also are elements that come from the street. You can see here an antenna, and also different sort of different animals or human part. He wants to create this type of personal mythology. It's a personal narrative.
Does he have a history of working with ceramics? I think this is really interesting, the relationship between this material and the painting on the wall.
I think that the relation is with the ancient ceramic that are the support of the classic history, also in Roman age, in the Greek age, and also in the prehistoric age.
We have a history of ceramics in Turkey as well. Do you have any ceramics in your collection, Sevda?
Yes, I do. I have a very big ceramic mace sculpture who had a presidential award from the first, and also very first lady, woman ceramic artist, Candear Furtun. We have a very nice piece of her. Yeah. I always say that artists help us to dream. So after your wordings, I continue to dream to see what is there.
We would like to thank you very much for joining us on this walkie-talkie. It's been really fun, and I think,
No, it was a very nice experience for me also, because the artistic language is universal. So even we don't have any common language, when we look to the art, we come together and we share the same emotions.
Thank you for doing this walk. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Ciao.